Real Foundations is a professional services firm focused on helping companies that develop, own, operate, or invest in real estate make smarter, more profitable decisions. From the building itself to the way it's developed, operated, and capitalized, no firm understands the inner workings of the entire real estate ecosystem as well as Real Foundations. We make real estate run better.
Goes back. We go back years with MIT to I think back to the days, Jim, of Michael Joroff. And this is close to 20 years ago, and have always been fascinated with just the vision and the level of innovation coming out of MIT's real estate organization. So with that, I introduced James Scott, innovator in residence at MIT, very active in IREM, Institute of Real Estate Management. And James, a pleasure having you on today. Why don't you take a couple of minutes and tell us a little bit about your background and your perspective on real estate?
Thanks so much, Howard, and thanks so much, Jim. I've kind of a strange, interesting background. As you can hear from my accent, I'm not a local to the US. I originally from Ireland. I had an earlier career there as a lawyer for many years, and then came over to found myself in Boston about 6 years ago, and I did the program at MIT, the Masters in Real Estate Development and Finance. And through that, I met a couple of incredible individuals, primarily be it Professor Dennis Frenchman, Dr. Andrea Chagou, and Steve Weichel, who are all kind of like household names in this area. And what they were doing at the time is they had discovered, what they were seeing was this new vision of real estate technology really kind of cementing itself coming out of the great financial crisis. And what they did was they set up a thing called the Real Estate Innovation Lab, with the idea being behind it to really merge the Center of Real Estate at MIT with the technological kind of capabilities and the research capabilities that MIT is so kind of synonymous and famous for. And through that, we've led a vast number of projects with our industry partners, and I found myself in the position working from there from day one, and found myself now as the lead researcher there, working on a number of different initiatives. Through that, I also hold the position of innovator in residence with IREM. As a lot of your listenership will know, that IREM is one of the main property management cohorts here in the US, with 20,000 members across the US and in Canada and Japan. And what I do for them is a little bit more so on the academic side, which is what I work with at MIT. But what I do is I really try to facilitate their membership on understanding all of the new products and technologies that can really facilitate the property management on the property managers on the ground today. So between MIT and my position with IREM, I get to see all of the new tech. I get to see all of the cool stuff. I get to kind of have a little bit of a glimpse around the corner of tomorrow's world, and really kind of get myself. I find myself in a very privileged position where I get to see and find out, what's going on and what really is going to make the big differences across the built environment.
I see we get Jim back.
Yeah, Howard, why don't you stay on in case we still have technical problems? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah. Perfect. I hear you fine.
I was hearing a really bad delay. I would hear myself talk 15 seconds after I talked, and it was just not going to work. So,
that'll drive you nuts. Yeah.
Why don't you stay on with us, Howard? I think it'll be a good three-way conversation. So what I was saying is our relationship with MIT goes back 15, 20, maybe even 25 years. Howard, I remember the name of the individual.
Mike Joroff.
Michael Joroff, thank you very much. We brought Michael in remotely to our conference in Dubai in 2008. And then, of course, Wade Berner, who's leading up the smart building initiatives for the MIT campus. So, James, the conversation continues with MIT, and thank you for being here.
No, my pleasure. I'm a massive fan of Realcomm. I have since the first time that I attended your conference, and it's great to talk to you guys.
So, like we were chatting this week on preparing for today, MIT global reputation, top three, I would say.
Hold on.
Number one, yes, you're in the top three. Yes, the IIT might argue with you, but I still think MIT.
I'm just being bold.
But I have been reading MIT briefs and documents almost my whole career. Give us an idea, not real estate tech related. What are the big things coming out of the labs these days?
Oh, not real estate tech related. Okay.
Not real estate, just the big one, other stuff.
Oh, that's a great question. Well, I think, certainly out of Sloan, we're seeing a huge amount of money and, how will I put it, intrigue into this new world that the blockchain has developed. Blockchain, we've all been hearing how it's going to affect the world over the last, let's say, 10 years since it's, first came out. But with obviously the huge increase in valuations of Bitcoin and other NFTs, non-fungible tokens, people are really starting to look at that and see, is there a really way to utilize this and make a kind of real business sense with that technology? So we're seeing an awful lot of that out of Sloan. Out of the kind of, MIT Central, as I call it, it's always developing new, incredible, and crazy things. Especially in the material side. Mm-hmm. I love that we have the new Nano Lab, which is probably one of the most expensive, kind of building that's ever been designed at MIT, certainly in any campus. Which is really going to be the kind of the catalyst with nanotechnology over the next kind of 10 to 20 years, and seeing what kind of initiatives that they're trying to create out of that is really interesting. So for me, I always concentrate on things that affect the built environment. So I love looking at the stuff that in relation to like graphene and borylphene. Borylphene, even the next evolution of graphene, which is even stronger again. But then one of my favorite ones is transparent aluminum. I mean, this is this crazy idea, like that kind of. I don't know if you're into Star Trek. But Star Trek 4, where they came to Earth, in our own time, and they had to take the whales back in this huge aquarium. That's that idea of transparent aluminum. That a lot of people think maybe that concept was even developed from that movie. They're starting to develop that now. Out of certain sections of MIT. So it's really, really fantastic. Obviously, the Media Lab is just it's a special place where some of the most incredible innovations and conceptual design concepts that we're seeing, over the last 20 years, it's gone to a whole other level there. And every person that works in the Media Lab is more of a celebrity and rock star than they are anything else.
Do you think we could someday get you to walk around with a phone or an iPad and give us a tour of some of the cool stuff?
We actually do that in our class. Myself and Andrea, we do it at full. Now we haven't been able to do it this year because we're not on campus. But what we do is we do give a tour of the Media Lab and all of the kind of the cool technologies that are coming out of there. We've been very grateful that everyone within the cohort kind of really looks after us and make sure that we get have a good understanding for the students. So it's
I want to see that. I want to see the transformer building where you take a matchbox and it turns into 100-story.
I want to see the HyperCells.
Yeah, the HyperCells. One of our favorite, just for everyone who doesn't know what that is, it's essentially like, these little tiny shape-shifting robotic cubes that, they're only maybe about, the size of your fist. And what they can do is they can shift, by shifting their internal weight, they morph into spheres and then come together and communicate with each other. And what they do, with that, with a computer chip inside, is that if you have, hundreds of thousands of these, you have like a thing called, swarm robotics, which allows all of these to come together and communicate with each other. And that really has the potential to create a thing, or this idea of a robotic moving building or a shape-shifting space, where, the vision is what we would have is something that could curate probably something, the highest and best use at all particular times, taking that sticky illiquidity out of a building that we've always had to deal with over the course of history.
Well, when it extends past its natural good use, you just click a button and it morphs into something else.
Yeah. Exactly. How incredible would that be?
All right. So we've had a little fun. Now, over the last couple conversations, we've really, the three of us have been delving into the idea that there's been real estate technology around for a long time, right? 30, 35, 40 years, going all the way back to basic building automation, Johnson Controls, Yardi starting its enterprise platform, 30 to 35 years ago. You've seen some crazy good stuff in proptech over the last 5+ years. But I think we all agree that for all these good ideas that are out there over a long time, they're not getting adopted at the speed they should. Any ideas as to what's holding our industry back from 5, 10, 15, 20 years of great ideas?
Okay, this is where I'm going to get into trouble. Okay, because I have an opinion on this.
That's good. We like trouble.
Yeah. I'm gonna get a couple of strongly worded letters and emails in the post next week, as I usually do. First and foremost, fear. Most of the world of real estate is not made up of C-suite executives. It's made up of property managers. It's made up of brokers. It's made up of people who, their entire job is mostly made up of a network of communicating with individuals on a one-to-one basis. And for them, they're not really into tech to begin with. And then you mentioned a couple of things like AI, and you mentioned a couple of things like data science, and their eyes roll to the back of their head and they go, that's for the IT guy back at the office. Or you mention AI and they kind of think, oh, is that going to take my job? And it puts, this kind of, there's a little bit standoffish with it. But hopefully, I'm going to say hopefully, but hopefully the last 18 months, one good thing that might have come out of the horrendous situation that was COVID is that maybe, that adoption has where people are looking at it a little bit differently. And what I mean by that is because of the incredible, we'll call it probably the greatest social experiment that has ever been taken place with everyone having to work from home, is that people had to become mobile. They had to absorb a number of different technologies, even at its simplest, be it Zoom communication or Microsoft Teams or whatever that was. And they've realized that technology is not an inhibitor. They've realized it's not going to take their job. What it is, it's actually going to enhance their job. It's going to make them far more efficient, and it's going to actually make their job far, far easier. Because the incredible thing about automation is when it really excels is when you take a task, and it's very specific to any task that's repeatable and monotonous and generally very boring. And what it does is it takes the monotony out of that. It does it automatically for you so that you do not have to do that over and over again.
Do you think, I'm going to give you two more examples. 2004 in Tokyo, at lunch with a bunch of folks, we're on a building tour trip, and the gal comes out with a little hand device to take our order, right, from the table. That was 2004. I'm just seeing it into scale practice in the United States in the last 2 years. So let's call that a 15-year delay in getting that basic technology out there. Realcomm 2003, talking to somebody from South Africa, he took his phone, he said, watch this, Jim, I can turn my bank account on and off from my cell phone, okay? He turned it off, he tried to check out, and the gal said, your account's not working. He turned around, smiled, and he goes, watch this, click the button. She goes, oh, it's working now, okay? South Africa, Japan, 15 plus years ago, compared to adoption in the United States. Could you ever get MIT to do a study as to psychological adoption schedules, if you will, of cultures around the world?
100%. But here's the thing, you're talking to someone who came from Europe. So coming to America, even simple things like the financial system, people still use checks. Like, come on, are you serious? And that's not just me paying my rent. That goes across the commercial industry as well. And you're kind of going, this is insane. Now, I know the likes of, Venmo has kind of is starting to kind of creep in, but payment systems, that should be, within, for paying rent or for.
So do we all agree, before we take a break, do we all agree that the technologists are there, the capital's there, the ideas are there, they're bustling, at the seams, and yet there still is a natural resistance in our industry to going through automation?
Yeah, I would say that there's two aspects to that. One is it's very, real estate in itself is an interesting industry in that a lot of people within it have been there so long, and they wonder why if it ain't broken, why fix it? Right. And then what that leads to is this, that incredible social kind of dynamic of operational or organizational change. And that in itself are two of the biggest issues that, real estate tech has had, to try and drive a lot of these products into different companies. The incredible person of, it doesn't matter, if you're working in finance or if you're working in property management or whatever it is, all of these technologies are fundamentally based on data and the implementation of data. And if you don't have the team working with that data and behind that data to implement it within the system, you're not going to get the efficiencies that are going to that it's supposed to provide. Right. So you need to have everybody on board within the from the top down, right down to the guy, the boots on the ground. If everybody's not involved, these technologies don't work. But and in saying that gives a lot of the naysayers or the skeptics, what that does, it gives them a get out of jail free card, because if they're not involved, all they have to do is just not implement the data that they're supposed to. And it's not working the way it's supposed to. This is a rubbish technology. It doesn't work. Why did we bother spending the money?
All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about a couple proptech innovations that you're excited about, and then some Monday morning advice. Howard, if you want to come back, you're more than welcome. If you want to get ready for the news, up to you. But let's take a brief commercial, and then we will be back in a few seconds.
Technology has changed the way we live. Emerging technologies are erasing the boundaries that separate people, places, and ideas.
For more than 25 years, Crown Castle has been building and maintaining the infrastructure that supports this new way of life.
Towers keep us connected,
Instantly delivering voice, text, and data to the devices we depend on.
Small cells improve coverage and set the stage for new advancements, like the Internet of Things,
smart city technologies,
and 5G.
Tying it together is our nationwide network of fiber,
bringing the entire world to us in the blink of an eye.
Here is where we find ourselves,
providing the infrastructure that new innovation requires.
The space where transformative ideas thrive.
The connections that keep communities together, safe and growing.
We're Crown Castle.
The pathway to possible.
Let's bring back James and continue this great conversation. James, before we go on to the questions I was going to pose to you, we got a question from one of our audience, or a statement commenting about the payment process, automation of the electronic payment process. And he brought the idea that it could be regulatory agencies that are woefully behind. Any thoughts on the stick, if you will, or the resistance that's created by policies that are decades behind?
Yes, that they, regulatory issues is obviously going to be one of the catalysts for stopping change if it's there. But I don't necessarily believe that it is regulatory. I do think, it's a lot of banking systems. How will I put this? 2008 changed a lot of things with banks, and it's not just regulations. It's their own willingness to take risks. They don't do it anymore. However, the fintech revolution, which is probably the real driving force behind this, has nothing to do with real estate technology. It's fintech. Is driving that forward, and we are seeing the great example for a lot of the banks here in the US is what's taking place in Europe and what they've been driving force. But really, actually, the really interesting one is what's taking place in Canada. Canada have actually been driving this force as well, with payment systems, especially for the real estate companies. And it's once the system is in place, it's kind of like it's going to become matter of fact. It's going to become day to day. And people as soon as it's like using Venmo now. It's like, it's simple. You just, you just tap a button and you make it work, obviously with all of the right security protocols in place. Whether or not it's going to be based off something like blockchain or whether it's going to, something along those lines, remains to be seen. Whether that technology is advanced enough to make that happen, I'm not sure in the next couple of years. But I do believe that we just need the financial companies to really just to drive this forward themselves, because I think that they would get an awful lot more value out of it as well, with when it comes to efficiency.
I do think, though, and hopefully we'll bring this topic back on Realcomm Live, is the psychology of change as it relates to innovation. And I do think that we watch innovation being adopted differently around the world. Maybe it's emerging cultures don't have anything to undo. They're starting from scratch. It's easier. Here we have to undo things, but I do want to come back at some point, maybe have you on with some clinical psychologists or, people who study history, because I do think that the technology's there, the capital's there, the pace of the innovation, if we could get to that science and figure it out, I think it may help us understand why we're a little slower to adopt.
I'll also add to it as well. The real estate industry is it's a completely different animal. And if you think of the people that are involved in it, they see so many fads in so many different aspects of the industry over the course of the life cycle or the real estate cycle as well. And so it's very hard to make, based on that alone, it's very hard to make change. Also, unlike all of the other industries that we're talking about, like let's say fintech or in the banking industry or e-commerce or even social media, things like that, with the large kind of players that are there, they have this new wave of money where they're able to take huge amounts of money and put them into R&D projects and it might work and it might not work. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But the payoff, if it does work, is so great that they're willing to take the chance.
Right.
Real estate, it doesn't work like that. You're only as good as your last performance. And if you fail, that's your career, that's your reputation, that's everything gone. We don't rely on a lot of
fast and often.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that in real estate. You know what I mean? It's a win-win-win, and if you fail, it's over, it's gone. So it's completely different to the VC idea of fail, and
I
win.
think that's an important point. Culturally, that's a very important point. I don't want to run out of time. We only got 3 minutes, so I'm going to force you. We got to answer these real quick. We got a great question from Robert Lee. Do you think cyber and all the things that are going on in the news are going to slow down adoption of innovation? Quick answer: yes, no, or maybe.
Sorry, say that again. What's going to slow down?
With all the cybersecurity breaches and everything that's been going on, do you think that's going to slow down the adoption of data-driven or proptech in general? Because we're playing defense these days.
No, but it is where I hope regulation is able to step in, especially with data and data privacy. I think that's an important aspect that is, I don't want to say it is a little behind here in the US and compared to other parts of the globe. And it's a very, very important thing because it's going to become more important with the likes of, the evolution of the Internet of Things, and what this next evolution of smart buildings, which will be the digital twin. So it's going to be very, very, very important that's looked at. I think the expression is the juice worth the squeeze. All right, the juice is worth the squeeze on this. For that to get it wrong a couple of times, because the efficiencies and what we're going to garner from this is too valuable for us not to not move it forward.
Okay, we only got 2 more minutes. I'm going to really fast. Give me the top, not companies, but the top 3 technologies in the proptech world you're getting excited about.
I just kind of mentioned my favorite one, and I know I've been going on for a couple of years, but there's no greater general purpose technology out there at the minute that's going to have a bigger effect on the built environment than digital twin, because it's going to encompass so many different aspects of the real estate sphere. And primarily, the most importantly, it's going to be like property and asset management. And for those, a quick explanation what a digital twin is. If you kind of think of, for those of you who've seen like a BIM model of a building, BIM outline or schematic, well, think of that digital representation of the building, but being in live mode. So all of the different sensors, all of the IoT sensors within it, be it relation to energy usage, HVAC usage, the people within it, space utilization, the heating, the cooling, everything within that, and then all of that coming together with the past and present data to give you this up-to-the-minute picture of what's taking place within your building. Well, that's a complete game changer. And then from that, what you're able to do is you're able to actually run forecasting models and scenario sequencing to really kind of understand what you can do with the building without having to go through the cost of actually doing it. Well,
I agree. I think the data, the aggregation of comprehensive data and the potential visualization of that data in a live format, game changer. We are out of time, but I do want you to answer this last question. Monday morning, somebody kind of getting into the proptech world for the first time, maybe a company a little hesitant. Give me 60 seconds worth of advice. You're on the 20th floor. You got 60 seconds. What advice do you give them Monday morning as it relates to getting into the proptech world?
Are you talking about investing in it or actually purchasing?
No, as an owner-operator.
As an owner-operator. Very simple. Educate yourself. And I don't want to sound condescending as that someone like me in any way, but what I mean by that is so many people within the real estate sphere, know their game, they know their game like nobody else. They can tell you the costings of construction. They can tell you the costings of a price per square foot, and better than any data source out there. But what they don't do is the minute you mention technology to themselves, they think about the IT guy downstairs that fixes their computer. They think about that, and it just brushes over their head. Going forward, and no one's asking you to be a data scientist. No one's asking you to try and write code, but try and figure out all of the vocabulary to educate yourself on what these things mean so that you can actually make decisions on them and understand what people are doing. So that when there is, and when you see this, when you hear these words like open API, what does that mean? Understand what it means, figure it out, find out what it means, so you can actually have the conversation with the IT guy and all of the people that are now making the decisions on this to see if it's appropriate for you and does it make sense for you to actually implement things like that within your own portfolio.
Understand, if I'm hearing you correctly, learn the language.
That's exactly it. Because and don't have it just kind of wave over you or brush over you, and just so you understand exactly what people are talking about.
Well, you can tell by the fact that I'm rushing you that we're running out of time. We're going to have you back. I really like the idea of doing it remote from the lab or someplace at MIT, maybe one of your classes, where you get your students involved live there, and we can do it. So we're going to get back to you, and hopefully you'll find some time to come back on. And let's continue this conversation, because I really love the work you're doing, the MIT Innovation Lab and MIT in general. So thank you for making the time this morning, and we will be back in touch.
Super. Thanks, Jim. Thanks.
Have a great day. All right. With that, we are going to bring Howard Berger back, and he's going to do the news. Thanks for filling in as we started. Always.
Yeah, no problem.
Getting much better, smooth at covering for each other, right?
Yeah, I think it worked out. And so thanks, Jim, and thanks, James Scott. Pleasure having you on. What a great conversation. So I'm going to fly through this. Every week, we highlight a few stories from our weekly news briefing. It's released Thursdays, 11 a.m. Pacific. So our lead article this week is by Jim Young, and the world's emerging from a hibernation, or kind of quasi-hibernation caused by the global pandemic, one of the most disruptive events in modern history. So what happened to commercial and corporate real estate and proptech during this hibernation? So we watched how the biggest work and shop-from-home experiment in the history of mankind took 20 years of a digital transformation trend line and shot it straight up. Even the most resistant executives succumbed to the from-home movement. So over time, come back to the office or work from anywhere has become a common mantra. Exactly where's been the innovation we were looking for. So we think with people largely absent from buildings, a lot of companies took the downtime, they revisited their IT, their smart building initiatives, actually got a lot of longstanding projects off the to-do list, focused on tuning up their building management systems, looked at indoor air quality for healthier and more efficient buildings and operations. But just as important, and sometimes overlooked, was that just about everyone learned the value of leveraging virtual and hybrid experiences and how that'll be changing the way we work and how we use office space in the future. Great article. Next, shout out to this week's technology partner, iOffice, helping occupiers create responsive workplaces, everything through space planning, employee experience, and asset management SaaS solutions. So this article does a serious deep dive into the 9 corporate real estate metrics you should be tracking. And these are some of the corporate real estate metrics that really matter: cap rate, total occupancy cost, percentage of revenue, rent, utilities, and employee cost per square foot, space utilization, annual head count by building, occupancy rates by floor, average service request response time, average check-in time. Kudos to Rebecca Simak at iOffice for a valuable article with some great takeaways. Also in the news, Garrison Architects is planning the world's first triple net zero building called the 76 in Albany, New York. Now, so triple net means energy, water, and waste. And in addition to be carbon neutral, it's also being designed as a showcase for affordable housing. It's going to have 242 units across almost 500,000 square feet. Sustainability is going to be woven throughout the project, and all energy for heating, cooling, lighting, and appliances generated from solar, wind, water installations, state-of-the-art stuff. Total water consumption, they claim, will be reduced to 0 through modern water collection and filtering techniques. Waste going to be recycled, composted, and incinerated. So we'll keep an eye on this project. Finally, a little news from Yardi. They just announced the acquisition of Forge, a UK-based software company. Their Forge Bluepoint product is a cloud-based solution that actually connects access control and allows companies to manage visitors flexibly and securely. So quoting Paul Spiriot, co-founder of Forge, this is an exciting phase for Forge and our team, and we're greatly looking forward to the future and being part of Yardi's end-to-end technology offering. So unfortunately, I'm out of time for today. That's it for me. Much more weekly briefing. Check it out, and I'll see you next week.
You do such a great job. And I was thinking while you were finishing up, let's invite all of our viewers to start sending in news. So anybody out there listening, if you've got an article that may not make the mainstream news or something that's coming that we need to be aware of, please send it to, just go up to our website and send it to anybody up on our Contact Us page. It'll get to us, and we will include in the weekly news. That could be promotions of folks, acquisitions of companies, new product releases. We may not be able to include them all, but there's a good shot we can get it on the weekly news brief. So
as long as it's within the past week, we can.
Exactly. Yeah, we're looking at current news. Exactly. Yes. Howard, as always, great job. Thank you so much. All right. So before we close the show and talk a little bit about next week, let's hear from our final sponsor. All right. Again, I would like to say thank you to all of our sponsors. Great support from an incredible community. Special shout out to James Scott, the lead researcher at MIT Real Estate Innovation Lab. We're going to have James back. As you can tell, that conversation wouldn't end. Thank you to Howard for the news, Nancy, production team, for pulling off another great episode. And next week, well, we're going to continue the conversation. We've got Sanish Kashav, the Chief Technology Officer from that tiny little industrial real estate called Prologis. Actually, Prologis, the largest industrial real estate company in the world, but not just are they big, they remain one of the most innovative companies in this space. So it's going to be an exciting conversation with Sanish, and I can't wait. And with that, we will see you next week. Have a great weekend, all. Be well.